Welcome to Understanding Connecticut's new IEP, a presentation co-sponsored by Darien Library and Darien CPAC. Darien's Special Education Parent Advisory Committee is an organization of parent volunteers committed to open communication and effective collaboration between families of our community and Darien Public Schools. We're always looking for new volunteers or victims. The more voices and input we have is the better. If you'd like to join, or you have some questions, or you have future idea for future presentations, please email us at dariencpac@gmail.com. For tonight's presentation, some people are, when they RSVP'd, they added questions, which thank you very much for that. Annie and Babs, our presenters, will either cover those questions in their presentation or they'll be answering them at the end. There's also a Q&A function on the webinar, and you can submit a question there also. You can submit it with your name or anonymously. And only the panelists will see these questions, not everybody. Also, please refrain from naming your children or schools or teachers to protect everyone's privacy. At the end of the presentation, Annie and Babs will get to as many questions as they can. If they can't get to all the questions, they've been very kind to say that they will answer them, and we can blast out these answers to everybody afterwards. Darien Library is taping the presentation, and once the recording is ready, we'll send an e-blast with the recording, the presentation PowerPoint that Annie and Babs will share with us, and a list of resources that they were kind enough to provide, along with those answers to questions if there are any left. So if you're not on CPAC's e-blast, please email us at dariencpac@gmail to be added so that you don't miss that. So we'd like to thank Samantha Cardone and Darien Library for co-hosting this presentation tonight. Samantha has been so helpful and is so calm, and Darien Library has been so supportive to CPAC over the years, and we're really grateful for that. And we're also grateful to have our two very informed, experienced, and knowledgeable speakers tonight. We have Babs Distinti is an advocate for families who know from personal experience how critical it is for all students to have appropriate services and supports. She's a member of the Council of Parent Attorneys and Advocates, COPA, and a special education advocate and advocacy with Advocacy Allies. Babs is the president of Special Education Equity Kids of Connecticut, SEEK, which many of you have probably tuned in. I have to SEEK this week. It's the first and only organization made up of parents, educational professionals, special education advocates, and attorneys created to influence policy discussion and shape legislative efforts on behalf of students with disabilities in Connecticut. Personally, I've known Annie Treimanis for about 12 years. She's an incredible resource to the disability community. Every presentation I've attended of Annie's, including her well-known FAPE University, I've come away with so many actionable nuggets of knowledge and information that I still use at each and every PPT I attend. Annie Treimanis is an attorney whose law practice is limited to special education, 504, and discrimination issues. She is also an adjunct professor for special education law and the author of several books, including Do Not Tweet and an IEP Meeting. Her daughter, Eva, is an adult with Down syndrome and with Down syndrome and type 1 diabetes. So we're so grateful to have you two, and please inform us. Thank you.
Thank you so much. We're very excited to be here.
And thanks for all those kind words. Flattery will get you everywhere.
I'll get started. Oh, all right. You see it, Annie? Are we ready to go? Excellent. So we need a drum roll. We need music. We need like some background, really exciting. We have a new IEP form, everyone. So I know the State Department of Education is very excited about this. I'm not sure how excited parents are, but we are here to walk you through at least the broad steps for now. So Annie, anything else you want to tell us about yourself?
Oh yeah, I could talk about myself all night. Thanks. What can I say? This picture, I have blonde hair. Well, thanks to the pandemic, I let it go gray. So, oh well, whatever. I like the color that God gave me. I guess let's move on to your slide.
I mean, there's my slide with my picture, always wearing blue. So, all right, let's move on. Let's actually get to what we're
Oh,
talking.
wait a second. Go back to your slide.
All right, here's my slide.
Are you wearing the same outfit right now?
I am not wearing the same outfit, but I do wear the same color a lot.
Okay, all right, just checking, because I've done that before.
All right, now we're going to take a look. I'm going to stop sharing because you're going to show us at this brand new, drum roll please, IEP document.
Oh, okay, let me do that. Okay, hold on, share screen. Nope, I don't want that one. I want. Okay. Okay, so everybody, this is like the unveiling. This is like a gender reveal party or you know, for babies, new babies. Okay, this is the IEP, the new IEP, how it's going to look. Now, when all of this is online, so we're going to share with you a list of resources so you can look at this yourself. So basically, this is how the new IEP is going to look. Some of it's going to be familiar. Here's you know, your data. Actually, there's a bunch of changes. We're going to go through this page by page, but I wanted to let you know overall, this is just a helicopter look, that this is how the new IEP form is going to look. And the biggest thing, which we'll get to, is that there's no more pages. These are sections. So right now, here's a section on you know, your demographics. Here's a section on, you know, who's here. Okay, let me stop sharing.
All right, I'll go back to mine and we'll go back to, so just so we know, in case you didn't know who's managing it, the Connecticut Special Education Data System. So CT-SEDS, we love our acronyms. So it's developed with the help of the Public Consulting Group. They've done this in 7 other states. Mm-hmm. So it is a single repository for documents, not just IEPs, but lots of other data will be there and reporting to the Office of Special Education Programs. It's going to combine data on restraints and seclusion, Medicaid billing, and due process activities. So what for us, what we're most concerned about today, of course, is the IEP, prior written notice. There will be a Section 504 accommodation plan, and everyone's going to be required to use the same document, which is great because right now it's the Wild West. So there's going to be a model for the scientific research-based intervention, also known as RTI, and universal screenings, but it hasn't been rolled out yet. Annie, did you say next year? Is it the plan?
I think it's February is the target date, but that is to be rolled out.
And then gifted and talented module will roll out January of next year is the plan. So the idea of this portal, it will consolidate all the data, and it has a parent guardian portal that you can access. So the documents that are in there can be translated into 10 languages. So that certainly can be helpful. And you'll be able to read everything on the portal on your computer, iPad, phone, with a code, an access code. There are also consent forms on the portal, and you'll be able to electronically sign them immediately, even during the PPT. So a couple things is comments, again, are our opinion and what we think looking at this. Obviously, everything we read says parent has access to what the district puts into the parent portal. Remember, the district has access to other information, but the parent portal will only have what they let you have access to. But per FERPA, Family Educational Rights and Privacy Act, you have the right to all personally identifiable information. Okay, so we do believe that parents have the right to everything about your kid in the CT-SEDS portal. So if you need to do a FERPA request, you do a FERPA request, and you should get all the documents that have personally identifiable information. And the other comment we had is about consent. We don't want parents to feel pressured to sign consent forms right away, especially during the meeting. Remember, you are entitled to informed consent. So if you have a question about an evaluation or whatever they're proposing, make sure you take the time to inform yourself. Don't just give blanket consent. So that's my 2 cents. Annie, do you want to say anything else before we move on?
Yeah, well, first of all, about the 10 languages. So if a school psychologist does an evaluation on your kiddo and writes a report and uploads it to the portal, that's not going to be in 10 languages. The parts that are going to be in the 10 languages are documents that this Connecticut says is promulgating. In other words, like if the invitation to an IEP, the actual IEP document itself, even the 504 documents, those are all capable of being in 10 languages, not just the document, but as they fill things out. But putting something in the Polish language, for example, is not going to be a requirement for that school psychologist. Okay, that's one thing. And the other thing is, which you'll learn as we go forward, this is not just a place in the cloud where all documents go. It's so much more than that. This is very interactive, very intuitive. Information gets pre-populated. As we go through the IEP page by page, well, section by section, what will happen is that the IEP document will expand if there's a lot to put in. It won't bother with certain sections if it's not relevant to your kiddo. So in other words, it's interactive. It's not just a place where everything is held. That's what I wanted to say. And also, I'm looking at the chat box. So far, nobody has written a question in. So I know we just started, but if we can kind of save questions for the ends, but if you're not able to pay attention to what we're saying because you just are busting with your question, then go ahead and feel free and write it up.
All right, let's go on to the purpose and the value of CT SEDS.
Okay, so this CT SEDS, that's what we're calling this new system. That is what it's called. And just so you know, this is it's so advanced and so comprehensive that there's no way. I mean, I could say a lot of good things about the Connecticut State Department of Ed, but and bad things too, whatever. But there's no way they could have done this by themselves. So they have really, with the public consulting group that came in, this is the 8th state that they've done this in. It's just been all kinds of experts have been called in to get this done. Let's see what our slide says that I want to say.
Oh, correct.
Who did that? You? Okay.
That was you.
So,
yeah.
One thing that this is going to do, this is not just one more document one more paperwork that the schools are going to be saddled with. One of the things schools have been saying for a really long time is that there's too much paperwork. This is actually going to reduce the paperwork because so much of the reporting to OSEP, the Office of Special Education Programs, so much of the reporting that we have to do or schools have to do will all be in one place, and it'll make life easier for the school districts. Okay.
Yeah. So another thing we talked about, the IEP itself was getting really cluttered. As we all know, it was a 25-page worksheet, it seemed, with little teeny tiny print. And it seemed like at least a third of the pages did not apply to your child. So why were you getting this document over and over again with information? So again, some of the information will still be collected, will be in the CT SEDS, but will not necessarily be on the IEP. We'll talk about that a little bit later. And so now it's not pages. So it's not page 11, page 8. This is where the services are. This is where the accommodations modifications. Now it's the sections. So now, right now, you've got the entire form, even if the sections don't apply to you, but the new IEP, you'll only get the sections that apply to your child. So if your child is not even close to transition, you will not get the transition section. okay? If your child is not having certain testing that year, you would not get that particular section. So it's flexible, the new format, it's collapsible and expandable. So again, there's pros and cons. The pros are you can add a lot more specific information about your child, but we do advise be as familiar as you can be with the entire document to make sure you're not missing anything. And you in fact have all the parts of the document that are relevant to your child, specifically things like transition. So make sure that you know about, what the age is when you have to start talking about transition.
Okay, I should say that one thing I'm going to do is right now, while the current IEP is still available, you can get blank copies at the Connecticut State Department of Ed website. I am going to download that. I might even laminate it, make sure I don't lose it, because in a way, hey, it sounds great if something isn't relevant to my child, I won't see it, but you also don't know what you're missing. So for example, if your child, if there's nothing about ESY on the IEP, because the school has decided that you're not eligible for ESY, you might not think, when you look at the IEP, you may not be thinking about ESY. I got a better example. If there are no goals in certain sections, like, now we have sections on reading, math, behavioral, communication, social goals. I'm thinking about the present levels of performance. If something is not mentioned, you may not, there's nothing to tick you off. There's no blank space. There's nothing on, you don't look at a form that might trigger like a thought for you. So what I'm saying is keep the old IEPs handy. So when you have your new IEP and things are not on it, you might give some thought to, well, why isn't that on my new IEP?
Great. We're going to go ahead and do the side by side. You want to do that?
Sure.
All right, let's do that. I'm going to stop sharing so you can show us.
Okay, so share screen. Nope, not that one. Not that one. Okay, here it's side by side. Can you see the side by side? Okay,
Yeah.
This is online for everybody to examine. If you're worried about how the old IEP is translated into the new IEP, the State Department of Ed put together this really great document, and it's called side-by-side comparison. I'll show you a few pages. So this is what the current IEP looks like. You can see my cursor.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Here's the beginning page, and this is what it's going to look like now. Somebody asked in the questions that came earlier, like, are we going to be able to, is it going to be easier to read? Well, yeah, because look at the difference between a cluttered IEP, which you see on the left, where we're trying to squeeze in bits of information, and what we have on the right. Okay, let's do one more side by side. Oh, okay, here's parent and student input and concerns, that 2-inch box, because they don't, I don't know, maybe because they don't want to hear your concerns. I don't know, really. That would be snarky to say. And so here's what it's going to look like in the new IEP. It's bigger and much easier to read. And if you have a lot to say, then this space here, instead of being limited to the 2 inches, is going to just expand and expand and expand and expand as much as it has to. Okay, going to stop.
All right, I'm going to go back because we're going to go through this piece by piece. So let's go to the first part is going to be the student information. So on page 1, that one with all those boxes, this is what the old IEP looks like. And, it has the reason for the meeting, primary disability, all that information. Now that's going to be this, okay, student name. My only comment on this is the primary disability right here. all of the options are on the other worksheet. So you'll have, I think it's 14, you'll have all those categories. But here you just list your child's primary disability. Well, you may have new information and you may be interested in changing your child's primary disability for some reason. So make sure that you're familiar with all the primary disability options in Connecticut. And you can find those online. They're very easy to find. For instance, specific learning disabilities, dyslexia is an option in Connecticut. And you may find, when they're a little bit older, that might be something that's more appropriate. So just because it's not on the worksheet that you use to give all the options, now make sure that you are familiar with what the disabilities are.
Okay, so actually, Babs, this is a perfect example of why we need to all laminate the old IEP, because you might think, right, my kid's not reading that well, he's got a learning disability, just as what you're saying. Well, maybe the right box would have been, instead of specific learning disability, it would be / dyslexia. Then kids that have some kind of health issue that might cause behavior issues. If the team puts emotional disability, you might not realize that there's another box that could have been picked, which is other health impaired.
Yeah.
So it's really important to know what all the options are, and you won't when you're not going to see the options on a page. You're just going to see what's supposedly relevant to your kid.
Yep. And
Okay, so this is the IEP form, page 1. This is where everybody's name would be put in. And what I didn't like about it is, you see how little some of these boxes are. Sometimes you'd really have to squeeze in, like everybody's name, like, the parent brings a bunch of people. Okay, it might say under other, might say Babs Distinti. Okay, fine, comma. And then and Treimanis, but they cut off my last name, and I would be like, oh, my last name's not there, because it just wouldn't fit on that line. Okay, well, that problem is going to be solved, I guess, with the new form. Okay, there we go. So depending on how many people are present, everyone is good. There's plenty of room to put out what your name is, what the name is, and exactly what their role is. Now, we do have a question. I do see a bunch of questions, and some of them I'm not answering right now because we're going to get to it. So I'm not answering it ahead of time. But there is a question. Do you have a link for the blank IEP form so we can print and laminate? Oh, wow. Somebody's actually listening to me. Thank you. Thanks for making me feel like $1 million. Yes, we will include a link and give that to Tricia. We'll
Great.
give that to CPAC Darien.
Great. All right, I'm going to move on to the IEP amendment. This is so when you decide to make a change outside of a PPT meeting, say it's a minor change, then that's when you do an IEP amendment. You don't have to have a big meeting. You've all agreed outside of the meeting that you want to increase services by a half an hour or something like that. The great thing about this IEP amendment is it actually shows you what section was changed and when it was changed. So a lot more details on what actual revisions were made. It's much easier to see. The old form had dates of the amendment, but it didn't say which pieces were actually changed. Now you don't have to read through multiple pages to see what was changed. So again, these are changes that you, the parents, and the district agreed to with written consent outside the PPT. That's for an amendment. So that is an improvement. So thank you, Connecticut Department of Education.
Okay, so you all recognize this page as page 10 on I'll call it the old IEP, but what we're using currently. It was called special factors. It was like after you have all the concerns, all the goals, all the objectives, everything, all the accommodations, everything's already written out. In the very end, they're talking about some special factors. Well, this doesn't make sense, because sometimes a special factor has to be thought about from the very beginning of your PPT, meaning your IEP meeting, because you have to keep in mind those special factors as you move through the IEP. So they've changed it now. Special factors is now called special considerations. So we think about them up front, you know, as we develop the IEP. Now, we're not just thinking about them or hoping that the school is thinking about them. They actually built into the system is prompts. So the school has to think about these special considerations. We have some examples.
Oh, here.
Okay, well, first of all, this is like if you were standing behind an administrator, this is what they see, okay? So they've already, as you can see, they've already had the IEP meeting information, they have the IEP overview, and now they're up to special considerations. So this red arrow is going to be moving along as they go through the IEP. So this is like a cheat sheet. So, and actually there's a lot of pluses to this. Okay, so next page. So here we go. This is what the interface looks like, not for the parents. This is what the interface looks like for who's ever writing the IEP, the administrator, who's ever doing it at your meeting. So for example, when you have the question, this was the special considerations that used to be at the end of the IEP. Does the student exhibit behaviors that impede learning for self or others? Now, if you check yes, you're not going to be able to move on until you answer the next question, which is, do you have IEP goals or objectives to be developed? Do you have an FBA that has to be developed? So for example, let's say the school, because there's behaviors, is going to have IEP goals and objectives. They're going to develop those to address the behavior. That's, as you can see, there's that box is checked. So now the system is going to prompt you to actually write that goal. You're not going to be able to close out of this IEP unless that goal is written. Okay, here's another, okay, so let's go, the next slide is another example. Oh, here it is. Okay, so yes, behavior impedes learning for self or others. And then you've checked, yep, you've got a behavior plan. So now instead of forgetting about that behavior plan, you are prompted to say, okay, well, attach the current behavioral intervention plan. Mm. And you actually have to go and attach it. You can't just skip over this section. And it's, you know, and that to me is really great, because I'm tired of seeing IEP documents where they're talking about behaviors, but then I'm like, okay, well, where's the behavior plan? Where are the goals and objectives to address it? You know, what are they doing about that, it, except telling you every day to come pick your kid up by noon? Yeah. So this system is going to prompt you to do the right thing.
Great. I'm going to move on to the next part, which is the PPT recommendations. So that, you know, as you remember, the old way, we would just list them this way. Here, they're, I mean, I don't know if it's that different, but it seems a little clearer, a little more room than one page, one line for each one. So that's what we have for the recommendations. Oh, and then the meeting summary. Annie, you want to take this one?
Yeah, but just to get back to those recommendations just for a moment. So this is just another example of how things are going to be expansive. So if the recommendations is 10 pages, 10 lines, you're going to have room for that. You don't have to squeeze it into, you know, recommendation number 1, recommendation number 2. Okay. Oh my God, the meeting summary.
Yes.
Okay, everybody listen up. Too bad we can't see everybody's faces. I'd be like, attention. Okay. Okay, most schools do meeting summaries. We know that they're optional, but the schools are doing them. And I think one of the reasons why the schools do it is because it's like a half a page. It's, you know, you go to page 2 of the IEP. The top is recommendations, the top half, and the bottom half is a summary. So people's like, all right, well, then they write in their summary. I think that was, you know, some of the reason why people felt compelled, districts felt compelled to write the summary. Now, of course, it's still optional, but now this is going to be a separate document. It's not going to be part of the IEP. It's going to be a separate document, as is, by the way, the prior written notice page. So because it's a separate document, my fear is that fewer districts will write the summary. Okay, so what are we going to do about that? Well, for one thing is you can ask the district to write a summary. Of course, you know, they can say no. Next, we tell everyone, always record your meeting. Always, even if everything's great and ends up in a big group hug in your child's case, we always record the meeting. And one of the reasons is because sometimes when you get an IEP, it doesn't look like the meeting that you've been to. And so it's important to have a recording, because then you can go back. Isn't that what they said? Is that what they really said? And especially if fewer and fewer districts are going to do the optional summary of the meetings, and the recording becomes, you know, extra critical. Okay, so when you get the IEP, when it's done and they upload it to the parent portal, that's when you will be able to see it. It's supposed to come in 5 days. Okay. So you're going to have access to this, the parent portal with a code that they're going to give you, a one-time code. And you can read it on your phone, your computer, your iPad, wherever. Okay. And whatever documents are in the parent portal, you can download them. You can store them electronically. You can print them out. Okay. There's a question about this, and we're going to answer it now. Oh, well, first of all, when does it go into effect? That's an easy answer. July 1st, 2022. Okay, it's you know, it's being rolled out. Okay, how secure is the online system? We are praying for confidentiality and for security. Supposedly it is. Supposedly that's, you know, I'd like to believe that the State Department of Ed is, you know, really did everything possible to secure the data. They say they did. And what I'm worried about is, in the old days, if someone was to go to the your child's confidential file, they would have to go to some file cabinet in the, you know, where close to where the special ed director was sitting. They'd have to open up the cabinet. They have to sign that they're going in and what their business is, and then they could look at your file. And when you did a FERPA request, which is a request for records, you'd always see who looked at my kid's file. This is going to be very different. Now, I did hear, you know, we listened to every presentation that the State Department of Ed has done on this. They did say in one of the presentations that when you go into a student's file, that there's going to be an electronic imprint. So if that's correct, I guess we'll know who's reading your kid's records. I do hope it works out.
All right, I'm going to move ahead to the next, but yes, meeting summary is optional and now is a completely different document. So the chances of them actually writing it and provide it to you, I think, has gone down quite a bit. So just ask for it, ask for it, ask for it. And once you get it, then double check against your memory and what you remember from that meeting, because this is a narrative that you don't want to lose control over what actually happened at the meeting. It's really important. So I'm moving on to the next section, which is prior written notice. So now this is prior written notice in the old form, and the new, it will be a completely separate document and is not going to be part of the new IEP, and the formatting is going to be very different. So we have some links where you can learn more, but it starts off with a purpose statement explaining what prior written notice is, because it's required by federal law. They've got to provide it when the district proposes a request or refuses a request to initiate or change identification, eligibility, evaluation, educational placement, or provision of FAPE. So something with the IEP. So it will be a separate document. It will list the team's decisions. Hopefully it will give the parent, guardian, a much better understanding of why the district made the decisions that it did. The actions proposed and refused, they use checkboxes that align with regulatory language. Supporting information is text boxes instead of checkboxes, so that you'll have the opportunity for more information. This is a very critical document that gives you legal notice as to what was agreed to and what was denied at the meeting. It is very important. And again, it will be a completely separate document from the IEP. So you have a link. Before I move on, Annie, did you want to say anything before I go to the new one? Or you want to talk
Well, I could say that every piece of the new IEP is discussed in these little mini videos that the State Department of Ed has rolled out. It's every Monday they put out a new video. It's if you look at our resource list, you'll see exactly how to access all of these videos.
So this is, I don't know if you can see it, but this is going to be the new prior written notice. It gives the purpose. It talks about what the actions were proposed or refused, and the description of the action, the reason, the description of each evaluation procedure, assessment, record, or written report that the school district has used as a basis for the proposed or refused action, the date it will take effect, and other options. So, I mean, I feel overall, in some way, it does provide you more information than generally what you get. It was usually just sort of, they checked a box and said, it's usually like, current, whatever, is not necessary at this time. They're just checking a box. They're not writing in text as to why they made the decision they made. So, and again, this is going to be a completely different document. So when you get access to the parent portal, we'll want you to look for the IEP, the prior written notice, and the meeting summary. So 3 documents you need to look for instead of just the one. So Annie, anything else about prior written notice before we move on?
No, but if I look in attentive, I don't know why you're asking me this, Babs, but if I look in attentive, I just looked at I looked at all these participants.
Are you reading all the questions? Yes.
I'm reading all the questions and I'm looking all these participants. I'm looking, some of our friends are on, and then people we don't know.
Yes.
Wow, thank you. I'm so flattered everybody came to join us. Thank you, everybody. I don't know if it's us or if it's the topic. Probably it's the topic, right?
It's totally us, Annie. Come on. Annie and I will be on tour. We're going to go on tour, like a national tour.
Oh, yes.
Connecticut's new IEP. We're making it into a musical. It's going to be fabulous. So Annie, are you ready to tell us about parent and student input and concerns?
Yes. Okay. So this is in the, what we used to do is we used to ask parents to please list all of their input and concerns on a separate documents, because you know that your concerns are not going to be reflected in the little 3-inch box that they gave you on the old IEP, the one that we're using currently. There was never enough room. So we always ask, so I would ask a parent to ahead of time to list all of their concerns. And sometimes that was like 10 pages. And then since they couldn't possibly squeeze it onto that little 3-inch box, they would, we would insist that they say, please see attached parent concerns. So one good thing about this new IEP is that we're not restricted to the 3 inches. But what is really different is that now your concerns are not just going to be in a standalone box, or either the document that we've asked to be submitted or the 3 inches. Now parent input is going to be right on top. If it's input academic concerns, then it's going to be right on top of the academic goal. And if it's a concern, a non-academic concern, then it's going to be right on top of the the functional goals, the non-academic goals. So it's going to be put into a different place. So there's going to be 2 separate places where parent input is going to be reflected. And it's because this document can expand and contract. There's room for your 10 pages or room for your half a sentence, whatever you decide to contribute. Okay. Did you just jump a page? I think I got everything.
I did not jump a page. One thing though I did want to point out, Annie, we've talked about is that the old IEP did say parent or student input and concerns. This just says parent and or student input. The C word is gone. So please remember that this means concerns as well. It's not just like, I love the team, he loves his teacher, he's eating breakfast every day. Input is a big, broad umbrella term, but I feel like the word concern leads you to why are we here at the PPT? So remember, even though the word is not there, this is for you, both your input and concerns. So make sure that you put that in there. So, and now you have more space, which is good. So again, that's my concern is the lack of the word concern.
Right, and I'm going to mention this here is that Babs is right. It shouldn't just be parent inputs. It should really, parents should be reminded that their concerns must be considered before an IEP is developed. That's federal law. So we don't like that it's just that this section is called parent and student input and it doesn't say concerns and inputs, but that doesn't mean it can't be changed. Yeah. So as this rolls out and as we see what we believe the problems are with the IEP, we can still get this changed. And we can provide input to the State Department of Ed. Now, they've been running focus groups and, for a couple of years now. And also there were 20 pilot districts that supposedly have been using this form for the past year. So there has been a lot of opportunity for input, but clearly nobody was concerned about this until Babs just brought it up 5 minutes ago. So we'll see if we can get this change in also.
And another thing that we've talked about, again, on a broad level, is that what was helpful with the present levels of performance in the old IEP is you had different areas where you could sort of guide the parent. Do you have concerns in this area? Do you have concerns in that area? If it's so broad, they may miss or they might not know that social emotional is a concern that can be addressed in an IEP. Or, occupational therapy is a concern that can be addressed in an IEP. Handwriting, there are many things that parents could just not know because they didn't, it was in the old IEP as an option, but it's when you have a blank slate, you may not know to ask for it. So just like Annie said, laminate that old one, take a look when you're talking about your concerns with your child, your input and concerns, say, okay, well, what about this domain? What about that domain? What is, and so that way it can be as thorough as possible.
Oh my gosh, Babs, there was a question on prior written notice.
Okay.
I think I better read it now because
all
we
right,
passed the prior written notice.
All right, we can
section.
come back.
Okay, it says, somebody asked, is there a prior written notice section in the new form? The answer is yes. And is the description of the section updated to use less jargon and more understandable description for parents to understand the importance of this documenting the parents' concerns, requests, or refusal by the district? So overall, I would say yes, it's a little easier to answer. It's a little easier to understand overall. You agree with that, right, Babs?
I do agree, but it's not in the it's not in the IEP.
Right, it is a separate document. It is easier to understand, but here's what I want to say. And that is, as far as jargon goes, okay. I used to complain to schools, oh, you have to use less jargon. And I think it's, I don't say that anymore. What I think is this, is that I'm not a medical doctor, and I actually only went up to 9th grade biology. But when my daughter developed type 1 diabetes, I became an expert in how the pancreas works and, and a lot of medications and a lot of medical stuff that I never dreamed I would know anything about. And so if your kid has an IEP, and if your kid has a disability and is requiring special education services, my advice to you is to learn the jargon. And don't complain about it, just learn what those words are. Learn a whole new vocabulary, because that's just, you know, your new job is to become an expert in this IEP form, in the laws that protect individuals with disabilities, in your kiddo's disability itself. I mean, you just have to, it's like getting 3 or 4 PhDs in your spare time, and you've got to do it. So yes, prior written notice is easier to understand, but no, there's still jargon in it, and there always will be, I guess.
And I will add to Annie's comment about educating yourself, of course, but in the meantime, before you know, if you have any questions, it is absolutely your right to understand what they are proposing to you and what it means. So, you know, do not feel shy to call special ed director, whomever you need to, and say, please explain this to me, because you cannot be involved in your child's IEP without having a full understanding of what some of this means. So while you are educating yourself, you can use the school team to help you. So I'm going to jump ahead because where did we go? Oh, present levels, I think we did. Okay, so parent student input. Don't forget about concerns. Don't forget about all the different areas of concerns that you've put in, but you do have more space, so you can write all of that, which is great. This is so there is an improvement here. It's nice that we have the parent and student input and concerns, present level of performance, strengths, concerns, and needs, and then the goals. If you remember in the past, we put the present levels on the front, and then the goals are all through the document. So you keep flipping back and forth to saying, can they read? Can they decode? Can they do all the, so now this is supposed to be all connected. So, and it also is supposed to be embedded with the Connecticut core learning standards. So the IEP goals are now supposed to be standards based. There's no drop-down menu for goals, and there's no goal bank. And I do think that is a win. What do you think?
Well, Babs, don't you think they're secretly going to have some kind of drop-down menu? Like,
I don't know.
Not just write these from scratch.
I'm just a cockeyed optimist. I'm thinking maybe they have a secret bank, but at least to start with.
You know, some people think, why is this all on the same page? But you know, when people come to our offices, well, I'll speak for myself, but I know this is true for you, Babs. They're like, I want this, I want that, I want this, I want that. And they have a list of wants, give me this, give me that. And that's what they go into the IEP with. That's a huge mistake, because what you really have to focus on is present levels. Because when you look at what does a student need, needs translate into goals, and goals translate into services. So instead of just, I want this service, and I want that service, you really should focus on the present levels. And so that's the way an IEP works. And now we have everything on one page, so we don't have to flip from page to page, which is a good thing. And as far as aligning it with Common Core, we have had in the law, don't ask me what year it started, but it's been a while, where we have standards-based IEPs. It can't just be what you think this kid should be working on, you know, your own personal opinion. IEPs should be standard-based. And now this is really going to force people to say, okay, I have this goal and objective. What standards does this actually align with?
Yeah.
Okay.
And I think, Annie, too, and another thing about, yes, it's the present levels of performance that drives the goals, but also it still starts with the concern. So if you say my child has no friends, never getting invited to a birthday party, present level of performance has significant social, struggles, and then that goes into the goal. So again, it's always starting from the parent's point of view. You don't have to be an expert on being a teacher or what is developmentally appropriate for that age. Just say, listen, my kid has no friends. How do we, so instead of saying he needs social skills 3 hours a week, that's not going to help. let's start with what is the concern, what are the present levels, and that's how we build the appropriate goals. So I'm going to move on to, because this was our old, again, present levels of performance and the impact statement. It would say the area, the strengths, concerns, impact of the disability on and now we go to, for instance, a math goal. So the present levels of performance is the top, the strengths, concerns, impact, that's all over where the goals are. And here are the goals. Here are the course standards aligned to the goals. Related services necessary to achieve this goal, if any. So again, I'm hoping that because this is not a worksheet, it is definitely much more flexible. We can put much more information in here. So, so like a related service goal. So this is about the present levels of functional performance and annual goal. So this is where you would put parent and student input and concerns about functional performance. So again, then all of this is here instead of flipped 3 pages at the beginning. Goal statement here, what the short-term objectives are, the progress monitoring, all just like you did with, I will say, the old IEP. And then transition goals, same thing. We still have the transition goals. So these are going to be the, for transition planning, there's some minor formatting, the goals themselves. And if your child is, 4 years old, you are not going to get the transition section of the IEP yet. So, but make sure, again, familiarize yourself with what that is and what they're going to be looking for the closer your child gets to like 13, 14.
Okay, and we actually don't know when the transition page is going to pop up, whether it's going to be at 14, 15, or 16. We actually don't know that, but you won't see it if the kid's, way younger than that.
Yeah. So again, these are transition assessments. I think they're a little bit easier to read. It's nice that they'll have a list of previous transition assessment. So, so it just seems like this part, at least we could do a 10-hour presentation about transition alone, but hopefully this new IEP format makes it easier to see what has been done as far as assessments and post-secondary outcome goal statements. So if you see PSOGs, that's what that means, post-secondary outcome goal statements. Again, that's transition, that's a whole other thing. So course of study, this is minor formatting. So Annie, do you want to talk about the?
Well, I just want to say that I feel really, in Connecticut, we don't have a high stakes exit exam. In other words, like in Massachusetts, you can pass all your classes, but at the end, you have to take some big test to actually get your diploma. We don't have that here in Connecticut. And I would just like you to know that students with significant disabilities, like my own daughter with Down syndrome, she got a high school diploma. And I want you, I'm just urging everyone, that's listening to us today to make sure that the, that your child stays on track, takes all the correct courses, whatever it is, 4 Englishes, 1, whatever, a little of each, in each, all the courses you have to take in order to receive a legal high school diploma. That's what I'm hoping for. As far as, here's something very important. Okay. When your kiddo is going to be 18 within a year, the law requires the school to let the parents know that, and let the student know that the rights you have under IDEA, which is the special ed law that controls here, is going to transfer to the student at age 18. And schools often say to the parents, if you don't want the rights to transfer, then get guardianship. And I just want to say right now, without getting anybody upset, well, there will be people that don't like me to say this, but I do not believe that anybody should have guardianship I do not believe that adults, even if they have significant disability, should have guardians. And there's other ways to achieve your goals to help students, help your child without guardianship. So here's the point I'm going to make, is that in here, go to the next slide, Babs.
Yeah,
There's
this is the new one.
in the new IEP form, there's something about transfer of rights, where if you have, let's say, a power of attorney, and so rights won't transfer, there's a place right there where you can upload that power of attorney, so then the school sees that the parents can continue to be involved. But what I'm angry about, and I'm going to try to do something about this, is why does the State Department of Education either not tell parents that they don't need guardianships, or make them come see me and pay me money, and I don't like to take your money for this, so I can draw up a power of attorney? Like, why can't they have a form that students can sign and say, oh, I want my mom and dad to continue to be involved in my education planning? So I'm hoping that, you know, we can somehow make that happen, as opposed to leaving it to the parents where they have to upload some kind of either guardianship paper or power of attorney. Like, the parents should understand they have options. Okay, am I talking too much, Babs?
No, it's totally fine. That's great. I'm going to move on to the next, just because it's oh, we love this page. Accommodations and modifications. We've all read this page. It is usually packed full of fantastic information. This is the old one. The new one is now a section called supplemental aids and services. So it includes accommodations and modifications, but also information on assistive technology and what adult support is needed, like a paraprofessional, and also what indirect services are needed. Earlier, that was called supports for personnel, like consultations. So this is called, so accommodations and modifications is now a section called supplemental aids and services. It has accommodations and modifications, but it has a lot more. So what I like about this new form, new part of the form, is it separates accommodations and modifications, which is such a, it's always tricky. Even teachers sometimes get this confused, and parents get this confused a lot. So accommodation is essentially you're doing the same work, but you have like extended, you take the same test, but you have time and a half. That's an accommodation. A modification is you don't take the same test. That's a modification. You have modified your curriculum. So it is a change. So I like that they split this up. They also show where the locations are, where some of these accommodations will take place. So assistive technology is here, and adult support. So I like that they specific locations, classrooms, etc., will be for each of these. Let me move to this next. Oh, so we also talked about this. This is the prior one, supports for personnel. This box was even tinier, I think, than the parent input concerns. So it's like, this is how much support is required for school personnel to implement the IEP. And you have like a line and a half. And if you can't, if you go beyond a line and a half, that would be really, really. So now indirect services, much bigger, much more flexible. You can put our supports required for school personnel to implement this IEP. You put yes, you put all this information. So service and which goals they're aligned to, frequency, duration, responsible staff, start date, end date. Okay, so also this also traditionally, we've talked about this, parent training is something we ask for a lot. We find very, very helpful. Historically, parent training has been in this little teeny tiny box as well. So I'm assuming we're saying that this is where parent training would be as well. Is that correct, Annie?
Well, it's on my watch, it is. I mean, I don't like that they call it supports required for school personnel. That kind of looks like it means people that get paid by the school district to implement this IEP. But this is the only place that I know of, and I believe that these can also include supports for parents.
Yeah.
You know, parents that may need some kind of support. so in order to achieve FAPE, free appropriate public education for their child.
Yep.
So
All right.
that's what I say. That's what I'll fight for. That
All right.
that can supports can. It also includes parent supports.
And just a reminder for parents, because you rarely ask for it, it's rarely offered to you. If there's anything that you think you need help with, parent training is part of IDEA. You are absolutely entitled to it. If you feel that it would be helpful to help you with your child and implement your child's IEP, ask for parent training. And I'm going to go to, so special education related service grid. Again, this is the grid. We've all seen this. Here's the services. It'll say reading twice a week. The goals are number X, Y, and Z, frequency, responsible staff. We've seen all of this. So this is the new one. So minor formatting. It has a revised list of instructional sites. So I don't know if it's a little bit bigger to read. I don't know if it's dramatically different. I'll go back. So Annie, do you have any other changes for this? I think it's just essentially the same.
Yeah, no, that looks pretty much the same. There is going to be a points in the IEP meeting where they're going to ask whether or not the student is eligible for special education for extended school year.
Oh yes, we're going to
extended school here. Okay, here it is. So
yep,
usually it's in that grid. So you're not going to see anything about extended school year if the team decides that the student is not eligible for ESY. But if they are eligible, then this what you see in on the slide is going to pop up, and that would be, you know, what services, you know, what goals, responsible staff, service implementer, blah 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 blah, all of the information about what's going to happen at extended school year. So it looks like the grid before, except this is only for the summer.
This is only for the summer, and obviously this still is a PPT decision. So this is something if you have decided as a team at the PPT that they're not eligible for ESY, this will not be in the IEP. But it is still a team decision. It's not something for them to decide and just inform you, okay? And also, if your child is not going to benefit from their sort of cookie cutter program, this is what we have, it's 2 days a week, it's a half a day, then don't assume that your child's not eligible for ESY. There are many, many other options, and they can get creative. So we're going to talk about so state and district assessments. We're going to kind of blow through this pretty quickly, just because essentially what you used to have in the old form was you saw assessments for all the grades. Now you will only see the assessments for the grade your child is in. So, and with whatever supports and accommodations that particular student would need for that particular assessment. So the specific name of the district assessment will be listed, and if they can't take that, if there's an alternate assessment form to see if the child is eligible for an alternate assessment. So this section will be sent, this is prior, this was all these, pick the grade, pick the assessment, this is different. Now it will be, it will see they're participating in this, they're in this grade, here are the accommodations, and give you an example. So that is, again, part of that laminated thing to be part of this, the CTAA assessment. There's lots of assessments. My gosh, Annie, there's so many. So, but have an idea of what is going to be appropriate for your child at which grade, so that at least you have an idea of what to ask for if they bring it up or if they don't bring it up. English language proficiency assessment, that is something as well that might be specific. So district-wide assessment participation displayed here. It was the old page 9, and this is alternate assessment eligibility for. If there's some sort of statewide assessment that your child is not eligible for, maybe there's something else that that was in the old, but now it's going to be in the process with some formatting changes. So progress reporting. You want to take this one, Annie?
Oh, sure. Yeah, we could not find anywhere online how the progress reporting is going to look, but this much we can say. And that is that if your IEP is was done a few months ago, or if it's going to be done on June 20th, it is going to be using the old format, and the goals of the progress reporting on the on your annual goals is going to look the same as it's always looked. It's not until you have an IEP beginning July 1st, if you create an IEP, then the progress reporting is going to go through CT SEDS. So there will be, yeah, I guess that's the best I can. I don't know exactly what it's going to look like, but of course, decisions on what progress reporting is going to look like, whether it's pre and post dating, data collection, or whatever it is, all that is decided at the IEP meeting. Now, this I like.
Yeah.
There used to be something called exit criteria, and parents used to look and they say, oh, my kid's graduating at such and such time now. And that wasn't true. What parents didn't realize is that's, those are PPT decisions. It's not set in stone just because the school wrote when the kid is going to exit. So I like that they renamed that section, and it's called anticipated exit criteria, because you really don't know if the kid is going to be, if he just needs an extra year past grade 12, or an extra 3 years, or maybe up to 4 years, who knows? Okay, so that date can change. So that part's good.
So again, the resources, these will be included in the resources section of the new IEP, and you can get these documents by parent portal, or these can be printed and mailed, and that's procedural safeguards in special education, parental notification of the laws relating to physical restraint and seclusion, parents' guide to special education, IEP manual, building a bridge, transition bill of rights. All of these you can have mailed to you, or you can access them on the parent portal.
Oh, which reminds me,
Yeah.
if for some reason you don't have a computer, and I hope everyone does, if you cannot go online and see any of the see your kiddos' IEPs, you can ask the school to send it to you. So and print it out and give it to you in paper. Or maybe we said that, but I just want you to know that. And it's the same with any of these guides or manuals. You can always request it in paper, but it is going to be available electronically.
All right, so transportation. Do you want to chat about this, Ann?
Well, people should remember that transportation is a related service, and you can write goals and objectives around it. Yeah. It's not okay for the school to say, oh, we can't we can't control that issue. That's a bus company issue. No, that's, that's a related service.
That's right.
But there are some specific questions about transportation. So what you should know is that transportation needs to be appropriate for each student.
All right, I'm going to move to the, just because this is so time with non-disabled peers. This used to be on the page 11, sort of underneath all the services, but now it's going to be, again, it's pretty much I think there's pretty much the same. It's just a little bit changed from some, the start date and displaying different years of the IEPs in effect over 2 school years. Okay, so that's so it's the percentage of time with non-disabled peers and justification statement for removal from general education setting. Again, this was also sort of at the bottom of old page 11. So you have to explain that the changes are just minor, just formatting stuff, but you have to justify the removal from the general education environment. Why did you have to pull this child away? And then part of the LRE checklist. And then if they're removed from general education by 60% or more of the time, they have to put the LRE least restrictive environment checklist in there. So it's part of the process flow, right, Annie?
Yeah.
Okay. Let's see what else we have here. Additional placement information. This was on page 12, things about hospitalization and private residential facility. So that's going to be in the new IEP form, is required data collection as well.
Okay, and I think this is a place we can mention that a lot of the data collection that goes on that where districts have to report things to OSEP, all that data collection is really going to be housed on the CT-SED system. And even though you may not see it on your IEP, this is where the data is gonna live on CT-SEDs.
Yeah. So I have what I did. I know we're going to answer questions now, but I know I talked to Annie about basically some just key takeaways for parents to remember about the biggest difference between let's say the old IEP and the new IEP. And for me, as far as like just the boots on the ground, what is the biggest difference? You used to get one document that included the IEP, prior written notice, and the optional meeting summary. It was all there on that one big, ginormous, monstrous worksheet. But now they're split into 3 separate documents, okay, that are made available to you on the parent portal. Make sure that you get all of them. Again, I recommend please request a written meeting summary, even though it is technically optional. I think it's really important that the whole team agrees on what was discussed at the PPT meeting, because as we always say, if it's not in writing, it didn't happen, okay? And also the parent and student input section for both academic and functional achievement have to include your concerns, not just input. So concerns in all areas, not just academic. So social emotional learning, executive function, OT, behavior, social communication, etc. So it's the only section of the IEP you can include your concerns, because remember the meeting summary is optional and now it's not even part of the IEP. So make sure to include them as fully as possible in the section. And when you get these 3 documents, IEP, prior written notice, and meeting summary, go over each one carefully. Make sure you agree with what is written. That's why we ask you to record the meetings. So those are my big key takeaways as far as this new IEP versus the old IEP. So Annie, do you have any other takeaways before we start answering questions?
No, I think we can, those are good takeaways. Why don't we just have a few questions left. So
Oh, yeah.
that last slide was a thank you slide. Let's go back to that last slide.
Go back to the slide. Hold on, my
We need to do formal thank yous.
Yes.
Yeah, we want to do a formal thank you to the Darien Library. I mean, I think it's amazing the way they support the parents in Darien, Connecticut.
I agree.
So thank you to them. They're amazing. And CPAC, which I see stands for Special Education Parent Advisory Committee in Darien, they have been doing some amazing talks for years. So I'm so proud of them. And what I'm especially happy about is that we knew the new IEP was coming. We've been trying to go to some talks and try to get up to speed. But really, once we were invited to do this talk, we're like, okay, now we got to know absolutely everything about it. So CPAC Darien forced us to become, I was going to say forced us to become experts, but, or at least in our minds, experts. Anyway, thank you for that. So let's look at some questions. Oh my God, it's 8:13. Okay, we're not going past 8:30, but I bet we can do all the questions.
Okay.
All right, somebody says, will the CSD, State Department of Ed, provide the metadata as to who accessed the portal in a FERPA request?
I hope so.
Well, I would hope so, but my position would be that a parent is eligible, a parent is entitled to all personally identifiable information in connection with their child. Well, guess what? The information exists out there is who's looking at my kiddo's records, and I'm entitled to it because that's personally identifiable information. So I would say yes. Okay, and if the answer is no, you know my number, right? Okay. Okay. Next question. How is information shared with outside providers, consultants? Can it be downloaded and emailed, or are they provided direct access? Okay. Oh, by the way, Babs, if you want to take the question, I will. Otherwise, I'll just start it.
You go, it's fine.
Okay.
All right, Annie, you're excited.
Okay, so basically what's going to happen is the parents, oh, and this applies to the next question, which is, okay, all right, the parents have access to what's in the parent portal. Now, this is not exactly equal as far as thinking about the parents versus the other members of the PPT, because they just get what's put into their portal. With their, one-time access code. Now, the director of special education, that person gets access to every single, all the information about all of the students, in the district. Then there's case managers. So let's say they're in charge of 20 people. So they have access to 20 files, 20 of these, whatever the parents can see, the case manager can see all 20 of her kids, plus he or she can do stuff, they can do things in the portal. Parents cannot, all they can do is be on the receiver end. So there's users and there's super users. A school psychologist that maybe services 3 buildings, she's going to have access to the IEPs of the kids in, all 3 buildings. So there's various levels of users, but the parents are completely on the bottom of the totem pole. They can only, not only because they can only see their own kids, but they can't, there's limited things of what they can do. Now they can sign consent forms on the, that come through the portal. I guess that's good. Okay, now the question is specifically about outside providers and consultants. Well, outside providers and consultants do have access to our students, to our children's files. It's a little different if sometimes there's an agency that provides all the SLP work, let's say in a certain district. So they're almost treated like staff, but they do have to sign confidentiality agreements. If someone, I'm not sure how much further I can take, can do this answer. I mean, if someone's doing an IEE, an evaluation, then the parent would have to give permission for, that evaluator to get their students' records. So the same rules apply, but okay, so this question also says downloaded and emailed. Well, yeah, things can be downloaded and emailed, or or people can get direct access. It's, I guess this is all individualized. So if someone's doing an IEE, I think they would be emailed the appropriate documents, but not have full access to, to everything necessarily in the parent portal.
And Annie, I think part of it too is I guess the parent is asking, will the parent be able to download and email something to an outside provider?
Well, yeah, anything that's on the parent portal, they can download an email.
Sure, exactly. So I'm going to look at this next question, which I think is a great one, but I don't think the question is, can parents directly input their concerns? Thank you for using the word concerns. Thank you. Can parents directly input their concerns into the form, since parents will have access to the portal? As equal members of the PPT, that would seem fair. It does seem fair, but I don't think you can directly edit your IEP, your child's IEP. I'm sure there's going to be, that's something the district's going to do. What I would recommend is write down your concerns and make sure that they are put in verbatim, just a whole list of them. And so make sure that is something that's not that you don't have to agree as a team as to what your parent concerns are and input, but you have to write that down. But I do not think you'll have access to actually edit your child's IEP.
Okay, I know we have to quit at 8:30. I think we can squeeze in the questions that came ahead of time. So let's try to do super speed. My son goes to private school. Can he receive a service through Darien public school system? We live in Darien. Okay, so for that, if you decide you're sending your kid to to public school and your kid, to private school, your kid has a disability, one thing I would do is ask Darien for an IEP. You hold a PPT meeting, you get an IEP, and you look at it and you decide, maybe I want to do public school. But if you don't, that's your decision. So you can get an IEP from Darien, you can get evaluations from Darien, and then it's your choice if you decide, you know what, thanks, but I'm going to send my kid to private school anyway. Now, the only other service you get is there is something called equitable services, and that's like some of the IDEA funding. There's like a piece of it, not a big piece, where districts can spend it however they want. It's total discretion on the district. I don't know how Darien decides to spend it, to cover kids that are going to private school but are eligible for special education services. So in some districts, they might say, okay, we're going to use that to pay an SLP that's going to go to all the various private schools. She'll spend 2 days a week doing that and kind of giving services to those kids. That might be one way to spend the money, but it doesn't follow the child's. The district decides how to spend that money to help those kids for the equitable funding, equitable services.
I'm going to read this next one. It says, is there a way to make the font size larger on the IEP? So I think most of us have reading glasses specifically because reading tiny IEPs. But this, I was going to say, the format seems much easier to read. It's a lot less cluttered. So, I mean, I think that you can download it from the parent portal, or you can read it on a bigger monitor. I'm pretty sure that, yes, you'll be able to make it bigger. It's certainly bigger than what it was, for goodness sake.
Okay, I don't know if the next question is really related to the new form, but it says what qualifies or counts as progress monitoring. And if you look in IDEA, progress monitoring is a description of how the child's progress towards meeting the annual goals are going to be measured and how often you're going to get those reports. Those are the discussions at every the PPT meeting when you write new goals and objectives.
This next one, I think we answered. If we do a PPT before the end of the year, what will change before the next one? Or do we ask to do the new template now? New template starts July 1st. If you have a meeting the day before, you do not get the new template. But as soon as you have a PPT meeting after July 1st and you are changing your child's IEP, you'll get the new form.
Yeah, and somebody said, hey, my kid, this was earlier, somebody said their kid graduated in 2018. Are they going to get access to a parent portal to see all their kiddo stuff? I guess if the district makes a decision, hey, I think I'll take all these old documents and put them into the portal and give that parent access, I guess, I don't see why the district would do that. I mean, for the students that are currently, they're obligated to put everything on, starting July 1st, everything has to go on the portal going forward. Right. Many districts will take the old IEPs and the old evals and they will add them to the portal. They will do that, but I don't think they'll do that for someone who's, already graduated. I don't really know.
Yeah.
And when they do upload documents, there's going to be some kind of naming protocol. So it can't just be like, oh, Babs, 2021 IEP. It's got to be, a date, a certain name, and so forth. Okay.
Will parents have to specifically ask for documents to be sent home, or will they be automatically sent? Well, you'll get an email letting you know that a document was uploaded in the parent portal from CT SEDS. But if you need a paper copy, you've got to tell the school. If you need something that you'll have to let them know. I'm assuming. That's what I understand.
Yes.
We have another question about how will this impact the PPT meeting, considering parental input, meaningful participation. We don't get goals and objectives done during, I'm assuming they're asking for goals and objectives. So, but we always ask for a draft IEP before the meeting, always ask for draft goals and objectives. I don't think those will be in the CT SEDS because that's going to be for finished IEPs, correct, Annie?
Well, actually, okay, so I think what the question is asking is, this person's complaining, stating that they don't get the goals and objectives done during the meeting. Okay, well, first of all, we all know that nobody it comes to an IEP meeting with a blank slate. They put together draft goals and objectives and put together some kind of draft IEP. If it exists, you're entitled to look at it. So what I would recommend is that you write to the school and say you want a copy of all proposed goals and objectives, draft IEP, evaluations, teacher reports, anything that's going to be discussed at the IEP. You want that 5 days in advance. And so this way, you'll be prepared. You'll add your input, hopefully in advance, so the PPT meeting can run smoother.
Next question, will the new system also incorporate a public school information system? Also noted as a PSIS, by the way. And I believe the answer is yes.
Yes, it is, yeah. Yeah, that, for those that, if you don't know, it's just, again, I think we discussed it. It's information that schools have to report to either the Connecticut State Department of Ed or to the US Department of Ed. All of that will be under CT SEDS.
One more, how best to deal with a school that violates a student's IEP? What? Do you have 3 hours? Annie, what do you think of that?
Can we stay here all night?
What are you gonna do first?
Wow, I'm ready to pull an all-nighter. Well, I guess what you have to do is get involved with Darien CPAC, because there's just tons of books and talks and seminars and webinars talking about learning what your rights are and what are the best strategies to make sure that your child has a an appropriate education.
I think that
I'm tempted to say no. I won't say it. I won't do it.
Don't say it, Annie. This is being recorded. And we have one more question that was submitted before. I'd love to hear what the panel thinks the relationship between IEP goals and teacher responsibility / instruction should be. So again, the IEP states in the IEP who is responsible for the goals, but that might be someone else different than who is responsible for implementing the goals. So that is Annie, do you have any response to this? What the relationship is?
No, I'm just looking at the time, 8:27. I think we need to let Darien CPAC come back on and
I know, we'll let them back in.
and thank us profusely. And we should thank the audience for
Yes,
hanging in.
audience, thank you for being patient with us going through all of this. And we have so many links for you. You could just spend the next 3 weeks looking at the new form versus the old form, and yeah.
Yes, thank you. Thank you both, Annie and Babs, so much. And you are experts, or at least you sure look like experts. And you made it look easy too, because I still don't understand the old IEP, and now I feel like I understand the new one. So that's great. Thank you. And I, for one, am glad about the parent and student input and concerns being expandable, because I can go on and on as a parent. I know many parents can, so that's a really great thing to know. And so for everyone also, both Babs and Annie were nice to say that they would share the PowerPoint with us, and the Darien Library is going to share the recording with us. And Babs and Annie also gave us a resource list, and we're going to blast that out on our CPAC e-blast. So if you're not on the CPAC e-blast, please email us at dariancpac@gmail.com, and we will put you on there so that you, once the recording, sometimes it takes a few days, so once the recording from the Darien Library is finished, we will send all of those things at once. And so you'll be able to see and do all your homework. And so do Annie or Babs have anything? I know you both have tons more to say, but anything right now?
No, we just thank, you do such great work, Tricia, and, really thank you, for your good work. And, I'm thrilled to be here. Thank you.
Yeah.
We'll come back anytime, right, Babs?
Absolutely. And I will say it's so important as a parent and as an advocate to know, to like just tell people and to let them know, to really empower them as much as possible and give them as much know-how. It like lowers the stress level. And I could see, even when I heard there was a new IEP, I thought, I just figured out the other one. It took me years to figure that out. Once we took it in sections and we realized like it's okay. So, and I will tell you this, I have seen every single thing on the internet about this new and the new IEP. And every time I watched it, I discovered something else. So if you didn't like take in everything tonight, that's totally fine. It's reported. We have tons of links for you and you have lots of time to do it. You have till July 1st. So you've got plenty of time to learn it. So thank you so much for having us. That's great.
Thank you so much. And it is being recorded that you just said you'll come back anytime. So we've recorded that part of the meeting. So we will be calling upon you again. So, and thanks everyone for coming, and we will get out that e-blast soon. Thank you all so much.
Great, thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks everyone. Okay.